Organizational behavior, chapter 14, leadership styles and behaviors. So when we look at the class agenda, we're looking at the leadership class agenda. We're looking at the leadership styles and behaviors. Why are leaders are some leaders more effective than others? So we're going to talk about leadership decision-making styles, day-to-day leadership behaviors, transformation leadership behaviors, and how important leadership is. We have our integrative model that we've seen on behavior from previous chapters. So leadership styles and behaviors, the use of power influence to direct the activities of followers towards goal achievement. How leaders use their power and influence. So when leaders use their influence and powers, it's towards working towards something, a common goal or some type of achievement. This is how ultimately they get things done. And this is one of the reasons why when people see bad leaders or they consider people bad leaders, this is an area which they struggle in. How leaders use their power and influence in an effective way. Several measures to measure leader effectiveness. Objective evaluations of a unit focus on followers such as absenteeism, retention, talent employees, employee surveys of the perceived performance of the leader. So nowadays people are more conscious in organizational behavior, more conscientious about leadership and leaders when it comes to groups of people being effective at work. For instance, you can't have a bad leader in a good group because a bad leader will make a good group bad and they will mess things up. But you can't take a good leader and put it with a bad group, and a good leader can make them perform. So, and there's several ways, the things that I just mentioned, ways for you to check on that to try to determine what's going on with the leader. So we look at employee-centered measures of leadership effectiveness. So this is where we ask all members of the unit to fill out the following survey items, then leverage the responses across the group to get a measure of the leader's effectiveness. So this is where you're asking the employees, tell me about, what do you think about your leader? What, and not only what do you think about them, where do you think you're strong, where do you think they're weak? Here, the dyad focus approach is ask members of the unit to fill out the following survey items in reference to their particular relationship with the leader. The responses are not averaged across the group, rather differences across the people indicate differentiation into in-groups or out-groups within the unit. And we'll talk about in-groups and out-groups a little later. So here you're trying to find out what type of relationship do you have with the leader. And this is good to let you know, does the leader have a connection with their people? And do they trust their leader? Do they think the leader have their back? So describe how leader-member relationships develop over time on a dyadic basis. So role-taking phase involves leader providing employee with job expectations and employee tries to meet those expectations. So this is where you sit down and the leader and the employee to try to figure out, do you have alignment? Does this person know what they're supposed to do? And if they don't, then you tell them. And if they think they do know and they have a pretty good grasp, you make sure that they have a good grasp of it. Role-making phase involves exchange of opportunities and resources based on follower voicing expectations for the relationship. So during this role-making phase, this is a lot of times where you're going to find people who have more experience with the job, and they can tell you what their expectations are about the relationship. Basically, when experienced people can tell you what is it they need from the leader, and the good leader should listen to them because they'll guide him in the right direction if he's listening. The leader-member exchange theory. So when we look at this, remember I said earlier about in groups and out groups. So when we look at the in groups, when you look here, you see the leader, you see the red, the members in the far left, the far right, and you see the members in the green, in the upper right. So when you look at that, the green is high quality exchange in group. Low quality exchange group is the red. So you see the difference, how they're connected to the leader, how close they are to the leader. And the out groups are not. That is an issue, ladies and gentlemen, right there, because now that means you only have a team that's fully probably functioning as about 50% of what they should be doing, they could be better at. But you got some people on the inside, you got some people on the outside. Here is a little assessment, member exchange quality assessment you can take on your own. The average score is about 24. Why are some leaders more effective than others? Leader effectiveness is the degree to which the leader's actions result in the following: achievement of the unit's goals, continued commitment of the unit's employees, development of mutual trust, respect, and obligation in the leader-member dyads. So, not possible to identify effective leaders based on physical traits and ability. So, when the leader is actually effective, what they're saying is the unit is hitting on all cylinders. They're achieving their goals. People are working together. You have mutual respect amongst individuals, and there's no chaos and no turmoil, no issues. You can't look at a leader and tell what a leader looks like. Now you can do it, but it's not reality. So we can't say a leader looks like what? Is it a man? Is it a woman? They're tall, they're short, different race, different ethnicity. You can't look at someone and tell. Possible, however, to identify traits associated with leadership emerges. That is, who becomes a leader in the first place. So sometimes when you look at emergence, this is like, you know what? We really didn't have a leader out here, but I see one that emerged, and it's Linda. And she just naturally stepped up. Traits and characteristics related to leader emergence and effectiveness. So when we look at the description of the traits and characteristics, so look at the link to emergence, look at the link to effectiveness. When you see some of the ones that I'll give you example, we're looking for yes, high openness to experience, emergence, and effectiveness. Link to that. High extroversion, high general cognitive ability, high energy level, high stress tolerance, high self-confidence. Yes. And those are the things that you want to see in your leader. A leader's decision-making style reflects the process the leader uses to generate and choose from a set of alternatives to solve a problem. Decision-making styles capture how a leader's decisions as opposed to what a leader decides. These styles vary in how much control is retained by the leader and how much control is given to the followers. So when you look at the leadership styles, it's going to, it'll determine basically what type of process that they're using. Some could be, just make it simple. Some could be too lenient. Some could be a little stricter. Some could be too strict. Some can give up too much control. So you see a lot of different things in there when you talk about these leadership styles. So now we're going to talk about some styles that are defined styles. Autocratic style. Leader makes the decision alone without asking for opinions or suggestions of the employees in the work unit. So basically, what I say goes. I don't care what you all think. Consultative style. Leader presents the problem to individual employees or a group, asking for their opinions and suggestions before ultimately making a decision. Consultative style is basically where you look at it and say, you know what, I'm the manager, but I will admit I don't know everything. So I'm going to allow you guys to give some input on this and stuff too. By allowing them to give some input and stuff, you look, basically, think about this. So you make the final decision, but you've had 5 direct reports who responded to it. So now you get the benefit of not only your knowledge, but their knowledge as well. And they feel better about it because they got to participate in the process. Facilitative style, leader presents the problem to a group of employees and seeks consensus on a solution, making sure that the leader's own opinion receives no more weight than everybody else's. So this is kind of like King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. We're going to sit down and we're all coming together as equals. And nobody has more weight than anybody else. So we're collectively going to come up with something as a solution to this. And whatever we come up with, whatever the group agrees to, is what we'll do. Delegative style, leader gives an individual employee or group of employees responsibility for making a decision. So what you find sometimes when you have groups who are high performing and well experienced, sometimes you will have a leader that would delegate something to one particular person and allow that person to take it back to the group and allow them to go and do what they need to do. A lot of times with these types of groups, leaders don't go to them to tell them what they need to do. Leaders go to them to ask them what do they need. because they are experienced and they've done it for a long time and they perform at a high level. So they don't really need managing. They really need someone to just lead them and provide and support for them. Decision making styles. Is there is there likely to be one style that's best? So when we look at this and stuff, obviously you see high follower control, high leader control. And I will tell you this. You look at it off the bat, you might say, well, yes, consultative style is the best. But I will tell you, it depends on who you're managing. If you're managing people who are inexperienced and fairly new at the job, that wouldn't work for them. So you'd have to come up with something else. And you would most likely have an autocratic style for them right off the bat initially. So depending upon what type of people and their experience levels you have, it determines what management style will probably work the best. Several factors combine to make some decision-making styles more effective than others. So decisions significance. Understanding how you look at it, and you say time-driven model. Decisions, time is money, and sometimes time is essential. So decision significance. Are you making the right decision, and are you making the right amount of time? Importance of commitment. You have to have commitment from the leaders. The leaders must have commitment and be able to convey that to others before they can get others to commit. Leader expertise. A leader doesn't have to know everything that his or her group does. A leader does have to be a subject matter expert in something to actually have gotten to that level. Now, also being a leader expertise, you also understand that if you have subject matter experts that work for you, use them to help you make good decisions. Likelihood of commitment. Increase the likelihood of commitment by getting people involved in the process. Allow them to give input. Allow them to give you some information to help you make good decisions. Shared objectives. Make sure everybody understands what the objectives are. There is not, even though there may be micro objectives, but the macro objectives are all the same. The micro objectives will be different because you might have different units doing different jobs, but the macro is going to be the same for everybody, and you have to make sure everybody understands it. Employee expertise. I just mentioned it earlier. When a leader has employees who are subject matter experts, use them to help make good decisions. That's what good leaders do. A good leader never utters these words, I know more than all y'all. Well, that's nuts, but you may not have the background that all of them have. So what you will say is, I'm a leader and I know a lot, but collectively, we know a lot more. Teamwork skills. Some groups don't know how to function as teams because they were never asked to do so. Or they was working for a leader who was bad and was not good at it and didn't understand how to help them get that way. You have to ultimately get them to develop the teamwork skills so they can be efficient. What you want to be able to do is get them to the point where you don't have to manage them anymore. All you have to do is just lead them. Scientific support. In one study, following the model resulted in an effective decisions 68% of the time. Not following the model resulted in effective decision 22% of the time. So when you look at this is like if you have a model laid out of what it is people are supposed to do. When people follow that, they are much more successful. When they decide to go off on their own and make decisions and do stuff, their success rate goes down. Leaders' instincts usually violate the model. Leaders overuse consultative styles and underutilize autocratic and facilitative styles. So what you find right here is, like I said earlier, you think consultative style, well, that's the best way to go. Well, it's not, depending upon who you have. So sometimes leaders overuse that, and they're consulting with people who don't really have the skill sets or the experience to be a good consultant partner with the leader. And so then you have to look at when do you utilize autocratic and facilitative styles in these particular instances. And you have to be able to get that right. No two people are alike, no two groups are alike. The time-driven model. So when we look at it, the time-driven model right here, we see where you start on the green, you end on the red. When you look at the styles and stuff, you look at the different leadership styles in the far left. Now look at decision-making and importance of commitment, leader expertise, and likely commitment, shared objectives, employee expertise, and team skills. You can see when you look at these, you can see where they're high and where they're low, where they intersect. Obviously, where you want to have is where you intersect and you have highs. Leaders engage in about 1,800 behaviors in 8 categories. Initiation is how do you initiate things? But if your initiation process is not correct, that means you start off wrong. Now, think about this, starting off wrong with some type of project or endeavor, and then you have to try to make it right later. That's difficult. Organization, do you understand the organization? What things work in the big scheme of things within the organization? What is your role? What is your group's role? What is your team's role? Production, if you have production, do you understand what the production is, what the goals are, and what type of things should they do? And when it comes to the production, who does what? Membership. Membership is when everybody's actually feels like a member of the team. That's an emotional thing right there. It's a mental thing. Everybody feels like they have membership into the team. Integration, and in order to get the membership in the team, you have to integrate folks. You got to integrate people and get them. You as a leader, how do I get these people who are out, get them to join the in, get them to come in? Communication, you got to have great communication with your people. This style, these behaviors, because communication goes 2 ways. That's not talking to people or talking at them, it's communicating with them. That means things are going 2 ways. Things are coming from you to them and from them to you. Recognition, you got to give people recognition when they deserve it. That stuff is really big, and it shows that you appreciate people and what they do. Representation, you got to have good representation when it comes to this, regardless when you do things. For instance, if your group and whatever else is actually doing something, and then they represent not only you, but their chain of command. So everybody's associated with that level of representation. Two broad dimensions encompass day-to-day leadership behaviors. Initiating structure, the extent to which the leader defines the structures and the roles of employees for goal attainment. So when you initiate and define these roles, this is ultimately how you get to where you're supposed to go. In other words, if you don't define people's roles and stuff, you may find people duplicating efforts or things not getting addressed. Basically, something that's kind of difficult, nobody wants to do, it doesn't get done. So everybody has to have defined roles, and that's what the leader does with that. Consideration, the extent to which leaders create job relationships characterized by mutual trust, respect, consideration of employees' feelings. So when you have multiple people working for you, the leader can create job relationships characterized by mutual respect and trust, and also people's feelings. People aren't robots. They're people, so they have emotions and feelings and stuff. So developing a mutual trust, here's a word I often hear when I see good leaders who have good teams. They refer to themselves as family. So, but when you hear that, that's mutual trust, respect, and consideration for everybody's feelings, and everybody cares about each other. Might the importance of initiating structure and consideration vary across followers and situation? Yes, it will. It will vary, depending upon what the structure is and who it is, what they do, and also the type of people you're dealing with and the various situation. It's all fluid and relative. So day-to-day behaviors performed by leaders. So again, I won't read all of these. I'll let you take a look at it. You can pause and read through those. But when you look at initiating structure, you see them, and you look at consideration. Here's 2 charts you actually can take. From top part is average 38 score, lower part is 40. See what you score on those. The optimal combination of initiating structure and consideration depends on the readiness of the employees in the work group, also called the situational model. Situational model. Readiness is the degree to which employees have the ability and the willingness to accomplish a specific task. So when you look at readiness, it's like the ability which they have and they're ready to be able to do their task. So you got ability and you have willingness. Those are the 2 key words right there. Leader behavior is based on readiness of unit work. Telling. The leader provides specific instructions and closely supervises performance. So this is what you do, particularly when you have a group of people and they're doing something they've never done before, or they're new employees. Selling, leader provides support and encouragement to protect the confidence levels of the employees. Now you're selling people who are actually more experienced but may lack the confidence with something. Participating, leader shares ideas and helps the group conduct its affairs. So this is where the leader gets in and shares ideas with them. People have an opportunity to participate. That means they're giving input about what they do and the decisions that you make. Now, they're not dictating to you. What they're doing is giving you information to help you make good decisions. Delegating, leader turns responsibility to key behaviors over to employees. So anytime I've seen where it's been delegating, when you turn something over to employees, there's usually one or two employees in particular that you kind of make them responsible for and then let them handle. Anytime that I've seen this, that usually means this is an experienced, high-performing group, and they don't need to be managed. They just need to be led and supported. The life cycle theory of leadership. So when we look at it, we look at the readiness up here. You see high, moderate, and low. Look over to the R2. So when you look at tasks seem harder than expected, so now you've got to sell them on the idea of, yes, it's hard, but this is something that we can do, and get them to believe that they can do it. So initiating structure, high. Consideration is high. And if you look at R4, firing on all cylinders, delegating, initiating structure and consideration, you see those are low. So again, that's something that's situational that you do periodically. Depending upon what type of group you have. Let's go back to R1, eager but inexperienced. Telling, initiating structure is high, consideration is low. Something is missing. Think about the most effective leaders you can name. Do the leader behaviors and styles discussed thus far capture what it was that made these leaders so effective? So what's missing? So when you think about it, when you think about these leaders, if you find things that's missing, this is to tell you that they're not the most effective leaders. And when you think of them, think of folks who you look at and say, this is somebody's hitting on all cylinders, and regardless of what field of human endeavor. Transformational leadership inspires followers to commit to a shared vision, providing meaning to the work. Establishes a leader as a role model who helps followers reach their potential. This is what people should aspire to be, a transformational leader. These are the ones, when I saw people that I always, in my careers, or I've come encounter with, and I thought these were the best leaders that I've seen, they were transformational leaderships. Now, this is back then, I didn't know what the word was, but I knew it when I saw it. They can inspire and motivate people to come together and work together and share a vision and do good work. These leaders, they serve as established role models for these people to reach their potential. And usually these people were very good employees and direct reports before they became managers and leaders. And they still bring that work ethic with them. And people love that about them. Laissez-faire leadership is the absence of action. Transactional leadership relies on rewards and punishments. So you look at passive management by exception, active management by exception, contingent reward. So when we think about this, laissez-faire, this is a lot of times where you have people, when they look at it and they say, okay, well, I'll let them go ahead and take care of this and do this on their own. But they don't know how to do it. They don't have experience doing it, but you allow them to do it anyway. See, there's a lack of action by you as a leader. So when we look at passive, we see down here laissez-faire, we see that's the least effective. It's actually ineffective a lot of times. As you work our way up to the most effective, we're looking at transformational leadership. And we see transactional. You go from transactional to transformational. And that's where ultimately where we want to see leaders be. 4 dimensions of transformational leadership called the 4 I's. Individualized influence. Behaviors earn the admiration, trust, and respect of followers, causing followers to want to emulate the leader. So this is when people highly respect their leader. And this is when you hear somebody say, well, He never asked me to do something that he wouldn't do himself. That's what they truly believe, and these people will aspire to be like him, which ultimately a lot of times will make them much better at what they do. Inspirational motivation. Behaviors foster the enthusiasm for and commitment to a shared vision. This is when you got to inspire and motivate some folks who may lack it. They're intelligent, they're smart, they got a good work ethic, but they may lack a little confidence. They may be assigned something new and they're kind of a little apprehensive. This is where the inspiration comes in. Intellectual stimulation. Behaviors challenge followers to be innovative and creative. This is when a lot of times, this is really beneficial when people have to, in the course of doing their job, they have to solve problems. You have to encourage them to be innovative and creative and step outside of their comfort zone and don't be afraid to take risks. And get them programmed to now they are thinking about not only what can I do, what do I need to do, but what can I do better? And if something went wrong, where did I go wrong? So this is how you actually stimulate intellectual stimulation. Individualized consideration. Behaviors help followers achieve their potential through mentoring. So this is where you have people, it's like, you know what, I've got an experienced guy, I'm going to put him with the inexperienced guy to help him, mentor him, to help him get started off on the right track and not develop bad habits. The Way Back is a movie, and it's starring Ben Affleck. And it's about a guy who used to be a former basketball player, started high school, ultimately ends up, life kind of deals him a bad hand, and he ended up drinking too much and smoking too much and all these things. Well, his high school hires him to come back as a coach. When he comes back as a coach, first of all, he's got to deal with his own personal demons and try to clean up his act, because now he's leading all these young men on the high school basketball team. So in there, you would see where he's actually tries to motivate some of them to be the leaders of the team, how he tries to motivate the team, the things he does to try to get them to believe in themselves and work towards shared goals and stuff. There's a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about thus far in this chapter. So transformational rhetoric among U.S. presidents. I'm going to read the first one. Abraham Lincoln, 7 years ago, our forefathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. So as you go through it and read these are some famous quotes, and you'll realize some of them you've already heard, but you just didn't know who made them. Here's a transformational leadership assessment that you can take, and average score is 18. Take it and see how well you do. Why some leaders are more effective than others. So when we look at the optimal choice of decision-making styles, we look up here, we see the optimum mix of day-to-day behaviors. We see the optimum mix of transactional and transformational behaviors. When you bring those together at the at the high end, they come out to be leader effectiveness. So it's basically a correlation of things that determines how effective a leader is, and you're looking at them. How important is leadership? It is extremely important. Transformational leadership affects the job performance of the employees who report to the leader. High levels of task performance, high levels of citizenship behaviors, high levels of motivation and empowerment, set more demanding work goals. This is what transformational leaders are able to do when it comes to getting more out of the people. Basically getting people to come together, get people to perform at better levels, empower and motivate them, and also increase their goals and stuff and make more demanding work goals because they're capable of doing, in other words, keep them striving, never content. Transformational leaders affects the organizational commitment of employees who report to the leader. Stronger emotional bond with the organization, stronger sense of obligation to remain engaged in work, have higher levels of job satisfaction, feel more optimism and less frustration. So when it comes to this right here, these things, they're basically describing people because they work for a transformational leader. They like where they work, they like who they work with, they like what they do, they're optimistic, they don't get frustrated a lot. So this is people that you will find that some of them will probably say, I work on a team, I work with a group of people that I don't want to switch to another group because the leader that we have is not the same as the leader in that other group. So you look at the effects of transformational leadership on performance commitment. So you see transformational leadership, it has a moderate relation to job performance. You see transformational leadership, it has a strong correlation to organizational commitment. People will commit to the organization. And when they do that, that's when a lot of times you have less turnover. Substitutes for leadership models. So characteristics of such situations can constrain the influence of the leader, making it more difficult for the leader to influence employees' performance. Substitutions reduce the importance of the leader while providing a benefit to the employee performance. For example, a cohesive work group that provides its own governing behaviors, motivation, and job satisfaction. Neutralizers reduce the importance of the leader within the improving the employees in any way. For example, spatial distance. So when you have situations where substitutes reduce the importance of the leader, well, bottom line, if you have a transformational leader and you always having to substitute people for him, or he's not there a lot of times because he may be traveling and doing other stuff, employee performance is not going to be the same. And also, too, if you have a leader who's transformational, but he's at a separate location, that's not going to be the same as well. And that can affect how effective an individual transformational leader could be. So here are leader substitutions and neutralizers. So you see the substitutes, and I'll let you read through those and the description, neutralizers as well. Application leadership training. Organizations spend more than $169 billion on employee learning and development, and much of it is devoted to management and supervisory training. Can be specific, such as methods for conducting performance evaluations. Can focus on leader behaviors, such as initiating, structure, and consideration. The reason they spend that much money is statistically proven and research data that a lot of times when you're having problems in your organization, it can be traced back to management and leadership. There's a saying out there that people don't quit jobs, they quit managers. So they spend a lot of money trying to get these managers trained to better lead and understand their people. Research shows that the training programs focused on transformational leadership have been effective in increasing performance, organizational commitment of employees. So when you see the transformational leadership training, it's shown. People get better. I'm, as a personal trainer and of leaders in the military, the government, and corporate America, I can tell you it does work a lot of times because people don't know what they don't know. And if you show me a guy who's a senior leader or a woman who's a senior leader in an organization or an executive and they've got issues, I'll show you somebody that had those same issues when they were young and new leaders. It just went all that time and it wasn't addressed. Nowadays, corporations are addressing those. That concludes chapter 14.